Hey Tribe, welcome to Power Pantaloons. My name is Tanya Balarjan, and today's special guest we have with us, Rausheim. Did I say that right?
Yes,
Can you go ahead and introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what kind of cancer that you had?
my name is Rausheeim, and in September of 23, I was diagnosed chronic lymphoma leukemia. And what happened was I got into a car accident December of 22. I got hit by a commercial truck at a red light,
Oh
and
gosh.
the accident caused me to have a bulging disc in my L4, L5, which pinched a nerve that caused my feet to go numb. I progressively got worse into 23. By May of 23, I was no longer able to walk as we know normal. And I was being treated for the pinched nerve, and the symptoms were starting to become abnormal because it didn't go with the accident. So as I progressively got worse, I went from a cane to crutches to a wheelchair.
Oh
And
wow.
I was told that I would need surgery, but the initial orthopedic surgeon said he would do the surgery, but I something came over me that said get a second opinion. So I went to another surgeon, and she said, "No, you don't need surgery. You have something else." Unfortunately, she wasn't very helpful in context of what she said. She mentioned this word neuropathy, but she never went into detail what neuropathy was. So it kind of just went over my head. So I asked her, what should I do? Should I, if you're saying no, and this is what you get paid to do, and he's saying yes, which is what he gets paid to do, what do you suggest I do? And she said, get another opinion. So I said, well, can you refer me to someone? So she referred me to someone. I went to the third surgeon, and he emphatically said, no, I'm not doing surgery. The difference was he said I had neuropathy. And so he decided to explain to me what neuropathy was, but I still didn't know. And he said, you have to go get a blood test. And when you get this blood test, as I understood, he says, then we'll reconvene and we'll tell you what the next step is. So, in the process of going to get the blood test, back then, all these doctor's appointments was scattered out. So you might get one doctor's appointment in January, that follow up or specialist might not be till April.
Yeah.
And so it was a lot of frustrating and a lot of overlapped appointments in context. So anyway, um, at this point, I'm infuriated. So I get a new PCP, primary care physician. This particular person decides that he looks at my chart and he says something is wrong. I fired the other primary care physician because this one seemed the only one that knew what he was talking about. And so he told me when I go back to my neurologist to call him directly and let him speak to the neurologist. This would have been September 1st. So this neurologist speaks to him after I've been to this neurologist three times. And when I first met the neurologist, I walked into his office, but on my third visit, I'm in a wheelchair. And the neurologist kept telling me I don't have neuropathy, but everybody else is saying neuropathy. So now I got three different doctors saying three different things. So you can imagine how frustrated and confused I am. So
Yeah.
by the time that these two doctors get to chopping it up, they tell me to go to the emergency room immediately and get admitted. So September 1st, I go to the emergency room to get admitted. They giving me every test known to man. By September 12th, I was told I had chronic lymphoma leukemia, and I was a case study. And what made me a case study was nobody ever presented with paralysis for this particular cancer.
Wow.
And so at this time, my doctor hadn't spoke to me. from the time they did the biopsy on my lymph node to the time I was diagnosed. So for 2.5 weeks, I thought I was going to die. Everybody kept telling me, you got to talk to your hematologist. You got to talk to your hematologist. I'm emailing this woman. Now, this particular woman, she got fired, not because of me, but because she made, you can Google this. She was in the state of Georgia at Emory Winship, but she made anti-Semitic comments about the Benghazi war. She was a
Oh,
Muslim and she went online and made some crazy comments. But the point of me saying that is this: she should have took a leave of absence from work because she was neglectful to her patients, to me. I'm sending her email, can I see you? They telling me that I have to wait till I get an appointment. But you've told me 2.5 weeks ago I was diagnosed with cancer. I don't know what stage it is. I don't know what class it is. All I know is I got to wait to talk to you. But one of the other doctors talk to me because they're not the lead doctor. I made every comment I could make to the
I can't
company.
even imagine.
Right,
I can't even imagine. That is a horror story.
right.
That
So
really it is.
when she was let go, I had no sympathy, because my thing is if you're too busy dealing with that cause, then you should just take a leave of absence and go deal with your cause and not neglect your patients. And that's how I felt. So anyway,
Valid, absolutely valid.
yeah. So with me having the faith and everybody have their aha moment about if God is real or not. So I had family who said, you have a cousin who works in this particular department. And I did not know that. Me and this cousin had never met. And now we were introduced in this traumatizing experience. My cousin tells me, hey, request this doctor who I requested. This doctor video calls me immediately. Then they schedule an appointment 2 days later. Now, mind you, I'm a case study, so all these doctors are reading my file and they're asking me all these questions. So this particular new doctor says, do you mind if we become more aggressive? Because the lady told me I would have to take a pill, which was at that point after 2.5 weeks to find out that you have a cancer that you can live with. That's a big sigh of relief. But to go 2.5 weeks without knowing, that is a trauma I don't want nobody to experience. And
Yeah,
so with this new doctor, she was like, can we be more aggressive? Because the old doctor had left instructions when I finally met her 2.5 weeks later that I would have to take a pill. And this chemo pill I would have to take for the rest of my life. So it gave me solace, but I was still like just not sure. So
you're
anyway,
young. You're
right,
young.
right. So I had to go to rehab. I was in the hospital from September 1st to like October 18th. And I had to learn how to walk. I had to learn how to write. The things that I do now, if you saw the journey, you wouldn't believe it. I had to be bathed, you know, I had to have help getting dressed. And this was unnormal for that particular cancer. So this new doctor was like, can we be more aggressive? I was like, whatever you got to do, do. So for those who have children, I had to get several epidurals, but mine was more or less they took out 4 vials of spinal fluid and put in 4 vials of chemo directly into my spine. What had been determined was the cancer had attacked my spinal system and my nervous system, which is why I couldn't do the walking and the touching. I couldn't tell you a penny from a paper clip, from a piece of paper to a marble. I had no sensation. And so after several rounds of chemo in my spine, January 17th of 2024, they no longer found cancer in my body. And that's my story.
I mean, that's amazing. I, that's a lot. That is an awful lot. And I never have encountered somebody before who has had spinal cancer. Um,
Well, I had
I
chronic leukemia, but it attacked my spinal system. So it was through my blood, the leukemia part, and the lymphoma was my lymph nodes. But for whatever reason, it attacked my nervous system where I could not move, walk. I couldn't even do this.
Talk to me about your mindset and how your mindset played a part in your healing journey, right? Because some people would have received that diagnosis and just stayed paralyzed and not, do you know what I mean? Like,
So for me, and there's other people who would testify to this, but my theme song became "Eye of the Tiger" from Rocky. And so I had made it my mind that day that whatever was going to happen to me, I was going to fight it to the best of my ability, physically, mentally, and emotionally until I could. And so what happened was a friend of mine asked me, could he share that my diagnosis with my work group or Facebook? And when it was shared, because at first I wasn't going to do it, but now I would encourage everybody, if you come down with any terminal diagnosis at the time that you think is terminal, allow people to know, because you can't have you can't find out who your family is until they know that you're going through something. And that all family ain't blood related. And so when people know, you find out who really is for you and who really not for you. And I had people, you would have thought I was a celebrity in the hospital. As long as I was in the hospital, I had a different person coming to see me every day or multiple days. I never was alone, maybe one day by myself. And I had people from far and near calling, checking, sending me cards, flowers, whatever. And it speaks to your character, because I believe that everybody often wonders when they go to a funeral. One funeral you may go to and it's a bunch of people. Another funeral you may go to and it's not a lot of people. And everybody, I believe, has at some point wondered, what impact have they left? And so when I went through this, I felt like I was getting my flowers while I was breathing, because a lot of the people who came and shared stories with me of things that I had did for them innocently, just because of the kindness of my heart, meant nothing to me, but meant a lot to them. And for somebody to give you their time, because in this day and age, we can't get it back. So if somebody can get off a 12-hour shift and come sit with you while they still in uniform, that means more than somebody giving me $1,
yeah,
because the time you can't get back. And so when people gave me their time, it humbled me even more, because they owed me nothing. And the things that I
yeah,
had done for the people that they was happy about, I did it just because. I didn't do it expecting anything. So from that, you know, it made me fight even more, you know.
yeah. Yeah, no, I do know. The reason this podcast is called Power Pantaloons is because when I was going through my journey, every day I visualized I was putting on Wonder Woman's underwear because Wonder Woman doesn't die. So I totally get that you give yourself a theme song, a visualization, some sort of encouragement, right? So that you can actively choose to live every day. And I do believe that quality of life is more important than quantity of life. And having people come um to see you, right? That does speak volumes. Not everybody is prepared, capable to be out loud with their diagnosis. And one of the things that I did, and so now I'm 18 years past my diagnosis, so I've been in it for a minute, but one of the things that I really insisted on doing is being out loud about it. Every day that I went to radiology, to the radiation appointments, I would go in with a different colored funky wig on, right, to bring awareness, um, which brought joy to the other patients and even the staff. They ended up with a betting pool on what color I was going to come in, what color the hair would be.
Oh yeah. And it's just, you could like, um, I forget the poem, but it's you can control what you can control, you know. And I think it's called I can't remember. I have brain fog now, but there's a poem, and it was my mother's favorite poem, and it's just basically saying, God, allow me to understand what I can, and I'm paraphrasing it, but control what I can control. And so my point is, when I was going through this,
Are you talking about the Serenity Prayer?
yes,
God
yes,
grant
yes,
me the serenity to accept the
yes,
things like I I I cannot
yes,
change, to change the
yes,
things that I don't remember it all off the top of my head either.
yes,
The wisdom to
yes,
know the difference.
yes, that. So that was one of my motivations, and um, just the fact that you know I kept upbeat as much as I could, and the fact that people were there giving me their time, that was my motivation. That if they can give me their time, I'll give them my fight, and that was that.
Yeah. So as you were relearning how to walk, like what what did that feel like? I know that's a very like crazy
Well,
question.
I had let's not get it twisted. I had a lot of moments where me and God was really talking, and
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. I think that's a very important part of a healing journey.
I had some moments where like I had lost 30 pounds, and I had never gotten that small in my life. And when I would see myself in the mirror, you know, I'd get tears because I felt like it was over. And, I was just like, I eat right, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs. So it was like, come on, man. I treat people right, I'm honest, sometimes too honest. So we had those conversations like, the why me's, and you know,
Yep.
what did I do? And, I promised to do this and promised to do that. And, you know, so learning to walk, it was a lot of moments of crying because I have a lot of empathy now for people that have disabilities, because to be able to do something and then can't do it, and your mind is physically saying move and you can't move. I wouldn't wish that on nobody, you know? And so to have somebody wipe you when you're still young enough to wipe yourself, to have somebody, you know, bathe your private parts, and
I
for a
do
man,
know.
there's ego involved because you don't want nobody seeing you when you're not where you want to be. So,
I and there's ego involved as a woman too, right? Like not being able to
yeah,
put on your socks, not being able to dress yourself, not being able to do something that you should be able to do. It's very humbling.
yeah. And so, you know, there was times where I was in rehab, and, I'm trying to walk 2 feet, and I'm crying because I'm angry. You know, I'm crying because I can't defend or fight physically. Like, I'm like just pissed. And the only emotion that will show is tears of just frustration, and then to never cry. And now all of a sudden you're overwhelmed with all these tears because you've always fought for just like, no, men don't cry, men don't cry. And now you're uncontrollably crying because you're just angry, you know?
Yeah.
So, and then to take a step, and you feel like they're telling you great job, and you like, I used to run cross country, you know, I used to swim 20 laps a day. And so it's like to not be able to do any of that, or you can now only move one, and now you're moving your feet, but you can't feel your toes still, you know. You're trying to lift your leg and you can go one way, but you can't go the other way, you know. So that rehab was the most, you know, I'll never forget those journeys of just learning to walk, what we take for granted, the littlest things we take for granted. the simplest things. I couldn't tell you a penny. They had this drill where you had to stick your hand in a box like of rice and you had to pull out an object. And before you pull out the object, you have to tell them if it's a paper clip, if it's a penny or a coin, if it's a marble, you know, if it's a thumbnail, and you're not able to tell what it is because you're blindfolded,
Wow.
you know. So they have you doing games like them Wii games, and you're trying to bowl, but you can't move your arm the way you want to move your arm, and the littlest things that we take for granted, the games that we used to play as children, they're using these games to try to get your motor skills and physical skills back. And you're frustrated because you're like, I used to do this with ease. You know, you're trying to
Yeah.
play tennis with a Wii machine. You know, you're in a wheelchair trying to do this or trying to do that. You know, so
Yeah.
my,
Yeah. It's an awful lot. Um, was there a moment where you were just like, F this, I'm done? Like, did you encounter one like real moment where you're just like, I can't. I'm done. I'm done.
I had the moment I had was when I was in the hospital and you realize that life is passing you by because shift after shift is coming on and they have to weigh you. The beds, I hadn't been admitted to a hospital, so I didn't remember, but the beds give you a weight. They can zero the bed out and tell what your weight is, you know. And so they was making me drink Ensure. And so this one particular day, I had lost 3 pounds and I had been in the hospital like 3 weeks already. And I just went, it was like 2 in the morning. And I was like, where's the doctor? And I just went crazy because I thought it was over. I'm like, I mean, I said some things that I regret, you know, to the staff because that was my breaking point, you know.
Yeah.
And I had a friend there at the time and they were trying to console me. I had some people that had also had cancer and were survivors for other types of cancer, but I reached out to them and they were able to answer their phone and give me, you know, some solace and well, try to console me, I should say. And so it was a moment because when you in the hospital and they're supposed to be treating you and you're drinking, you know, this Ensure, but you're steady losing weight, you know, I thought it was over. And then you see yourself in the mirror and you look like a skeleton. And the only thing that I wish is I could have journaled this, video journaled this to show somebody the other side, to let them see what I went through to what I came through, to show them that there is hope, you know, but you just got to fight, you know. But that was my most real moment when the lady came in on shift and weighed me, and I made them call the doctor that night, like whoever was on call, you know. And we had a minute, you know.
I do. You know, it's one of the most difficult journeys that you can go through as a person is some sort of crazy diagnosis like that. And when you look at the statistics, according to the American Cancer Society, one in every two people is going to have some kind of cancer before they die. That's an insane number. Like it
Yeah,
half the people that you know are going to have some
yeah,
sort of cancer. So cancer touches everybody. So that is why we do this podcast, is so that we can share these stories so that people can see that there is another side, and that
yeah,
if you are stuck in it, just keep going.
yeah. And like I said, my biggest thing is to let people know that don't be afraid to share what you're going through with someone because why go through it by yourself? If you say you love someone, if you say that you would be there for someone, then don't be selfish and not allow them to be there for you.
That right there, that's an incredible point. I had the opportunity to talk to my sister many years after me going through, and she was my primary caregiver. And what she ended up doing was work 16-hour days, do all this crazy overtime while we waited for the disability check to show up. And she was upset that she couldn't be in the room or take me to the appointments. And I was like, what are you talking about? You did the thing you needed to do. You were holding it down. And it's just it's interesting that the the difference in viewpoint. So just having conversations about it with the people that are in your life, that's important.
Right. Because while you thinking you're protecting them, you're really hurting them because when people know you can't take away that quality time that they want to give you. And even if it is going to end up hypothetically stage 4, allow them to have that closure because don't let them live with the regret that you left behind.
Right.
Let them deal with you how they're going to deal with you. That way, if and when that day comes, they have peace of mind. You have peace of mind because there was no stone left unturned.
One of the most important things that I'm have realized is the time that you spend with people, the memories that you make with people are the most cherished things. When you talk to people that reach the end of life and they talk about regrets, it's not making enough memories, not spending enough time. So that's a very valid point. So I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing your story. I really appreciate it. I will make sure to put any social links in the notes so that you can reach out to Rausheeim if you want to reach out to him and follow his story. And I appreciate you coming on the show.
And remember, no days off.
No days off.
You
Thank
got
you.
to
And
fight to live.
yes, fight to live. I'll see you all on the next episode.